This is an Ash White podcast coming to you from the Milne Road Studios, Redwood Park, in Adelaide, Australia. Yeah. Hey, how's it doing? I've got the young charismatic Will Bastian with me. Will, how are you, man?
Good, Whitey. How are you, mate?
Good. What's been going on in the world?
Not a lot, mate. Back Australia side, so getting back into it.
Coping with that being back?
Good. Weather's good. Mind you, I mean, I did leave in summer, so I couldn't complain too much. That early few months in London was nice and cold, but
And Adelaide, we've been raining from the east, and
Yeah,
we've had
monsoons.
cool days, and we've had 50,000 litres of rain, haven't we?
yeah, it was pretty crazy. Went down the shack on the weekend actually, and it was a bit chillier down there. Windy as always. That's why there's a wind farm at Edithburgh. But no, it's good to be back. And although I think the weather Christmas Day's looking a bit average, but the rest of it's been pretty good.
Wow, so you've got Christmas in Adelaide, which is good. So what are you going to do over there? You going down Eberg or?
No, I'm going to hang here. We're going to go down to McLaren Vale though for New Year's with a few of the boys and ladies. So go down there, have a few wines.
And you're in love, which sounds good.
Yeah, Hannah. Yeah, shout out to Hannah. She's probably most of the reason why I came back, to be honest. So, but we're going to head back over in July and see everyone and show her around, which is cool. So
Excellent. Well, you've been around a bit overseas. You got any countries you might be able to tell us where you've been?
yeah, been to a few now, which is good. Not as many as Cato, obviously, but
Start in Europe if you want.
Yeah.
Just pick on one side of it.
well, originally I went overseas. Yeah, the first time was 2016. When I went overseas with the grandpa and did all of Europe. So started in the UK and then progressed to Belgium and went into Germany, France, and hung around there for a bit.
I know the row boys like Germany. I think they've done. I think Jackson's done 3 trips there, maybe.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty nice place, especially if you're, which I know you are, like your beer. It's probably the best place in the world. I didn't get to go there this last time around, so Munich is probably one of my favourite places in the world. The beer there is unreal. It's a little bit more alcoholic too, so you know about it pretty quick. So.
I think he said too, you've only got to be 16 to drink beer.
You do. It's funny. It's a weird world. It's the same with cigarettes and stuff. I think all that kind of stuff over there, but yeah, we definitely punished a few of the pubs over. Well, they don't call them pubs there, like the Hop for a House.
I think Jacko was saying something too that they're worse than us to get from one venue to the next. They have to go to a bottle shop and grab a drink to walk there.
Yeah, a lot of them are not close.
Oh, okay, maybe that's
it's probably to lock people in there too. Like we were drinking at a place called Augustina's, which is on the main. It's kind of like their Rundle Morley area. And we were drinking there, but yeah, it's a little bit of a different distance to the Hot for a House. So, but yeah, no, it's a cool little place, and I mean, mind you, anywhere in Europe, you're going to find a good time somewhere. Very different cultures everywhere you go. But
did you like Germany though? Was Germany?
Yeah,
it's pristine, isn't it? It's
clean,
good architecture.
Yeah.
Like the Germans always built good things.
They did, and well, they do, and it's very friendly. And I'm keen this time around though. So I've never been to Berlin, which is obviously North Germany. So they do say that it's quite different from South, which is Munich, to the North, because obviously South's more Austria, that Bavarian style, whereas North's still very old school Germany. So,
yeah, righto. Okay.
Well, I'm keen to see out there. Probably there's more history to see in
There's
Berlin.
a bit of geography for me today. I've only lightly touched on Germany with the rowies, but that's good. No, it's nice to know where it all fits in, and there's certainly lots of mountains there that I'm fairly keen to look at. I know that there's obviously the mountains to the south, is there?
Yeah, so that's the Austrian,
close
kind of
to
the Alps.
Switzerland and all that.
Switzerland's down, I think, bottom left. Don't hold me to that, but I believe that's that kind of side. And then everywhere you look is a postcard. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool.
I think there's one called Lorbenin or something like that.
There's a few.
Quite a few on YouTube that I get up every morning. I like to watch telly before I go to work.
Yeah.
And I generally pull up, well, automatically the mountains come up because I'm on it that much.
Yeah.
And it gives you another walking around one of the town cities there, and It's just it's romantic to me. The snow, I love the mountains.
There's so much to see, and the food as well. Like, it's not just beer. We're typical blokes just talking about beer, but the food is amazing. I mean, you wouldn't really want to be vegetarian over there, but I remember ordering a sausage platter. I had like 8 different sausages and then mashed potatoes, sauerkraut, and then you have about 6 pints and you're well on your way. You feel a bit bloated at the end.
Are they big buckets too, are they?
Yeah, so you drink your Steins, which I think I worked out there's almost about 3 bottles of beer in one Stein. So, but like I said, they're a little bit more potent depending on what time of year you go to, because they don't put preservatives in their beer over Oktoberfest, so like September, October.
Do you piss as much, or is it better beer? Or?
Yeah, you do. That's probably that's my biggest fault with beer, and that's probably why I haven't drunk it as much since being home. Is I just can't be bothered going to the toilet. Whereas if I have a Jim Beam and Coke, I'm fine. I'm ready to go. Whereas beer, it's just once that seal's gone, it's all over Red Rover.
Yeah, it all depends on where you are in the day when you start. If your kidneys have had a good run during the morning, you can generally get away with maybe 6 or 7 before the first inkling of that bad burst.
Bottles of water, yeah.
And after that, you might as well just grab a funnel and just let it run down your legs somewhere.
I think at I know the Oktoberfest, I haven't actually been there. Hannah and I are going back this year for the first time to see it, but they actually put these they do them at festivals now, so you might have seen them. But it's like a trough for blokes. It's a lot easier being a bloke when you go to the toilet, but like a massive trough almost in the pub still. So like you can kind of go and then dart back to the bar within the space of 20 meters. It's not.
Yeah, righto.
You're not too far, or lining up at least. I know a lot of places in Europe, which I found silly. I mean, it happens here too, but they've just got like an actual toilet for male and female, so you can't.
Well, they did at Robbie's concert this year too, didn't they? That they had that unisex toilet. Now, once again, the women miss out on that because they're going to sit where a bloke's either pissed on the seat or filled it up full of.
It's not picturesque, that's for sure.
But and I guess now it's a little bit more rafty rules that. Because it's unisex now, you really get what you get.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the world we're living in now. There's no point.
And I think the girls are caught onto it too. They kind of sneak into the blokes' toilets now anyway. So, well, not the trough side of things.
Well, fuck waiting. Like, they got to wait. Like if we'd have to like save up 3 pisses before we had to rush to get one done. You know what I mean? Like we'd have to go without 3 minus beers. Yeah. Before you had
by
to
the
rush
time
off.
you've finished, you go back. Robbie's singing bloody Monsoon, and you're gonna need to go back again. So
that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, he's great. I'm fortunate enough to see him now. That would have been the 4th time I reckon I've seen him. So I saw him over in Madrid with your daughter Kato and Andy and the gang.
The mountains of Madrid. Yeah, there's a song one of the old guys used to sing about Madrid. I think. Is there good leather there or something? There's something about Madrid.
Leather's Italy. They are big for leather, northern Italy. So that's more towards Florence, so like Tuscany. It was like a leather. I know when on my Kentucky tour, they did like a leather, like how they make it. I actually didn't go. I was too hungover, but
righto.
Kato on that when I slept in and ended up meeting him later on. But I didn't want to go because I was like, we got R.M. Williams and stuff here. I don't need to see some Italian make leather. I was happy seeing it over here. So,
but no, I know it was sung by a Bob Dylan song or
probably. Yeah,
and, they did rave on about the quality of the leather from Madrid. So
it's a cool place. Regardless of anything else, it's warm too. Obviously,
we're flying down to Barcelona, so we got 2 days there.
Yeah, cool.
That we sort of got to jam in next. August.
Yep.
So end of August.
But yeah, we'll be around. We're actually, because I haven't been to Barcelona myself either. So there's just too many places over there to go to. It's hard to comprehend. But that's one place I haven't gone to, and we are going. So might even catch you over there somewhere.
Be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And I think also like we're going to talk about war stuff and all that anyway, World War II, that you look in all that area of North Africa and around that area is really where the war nearly ended there. There's just so much all through that Europe part where the Germans marched into Paris and they marched all through everywhere up there.
Went everywhere.
And
until they got frozen in Russia. It's probably what saved us. But they did. They went everywhere, and there's bits of history left everywhere along the world. Yeah, like you said, North Africa. It's probably a spot that's not really talked about in Australian history much. And even in Greece, like there's a whole Australian war memorial on the island of Malta, which I believe is still part of Greece. I know the Turks and the Greeks fight over things, but yeah, there's actually a whole Australian war cemetery there, which is, most people don't know that. So.
You wouldn't want to come from Mars and land there, would you?
No, you wouldn't. You'd be very confused in what's going on. And it's funny because when you're in Greece and you're in Turkey, and the biggest difference for me was either calling it even we call it wrong. So it's not a gyros, it's a gyros, like with a G.
Okay.
G's kind of silent. But then the Turks call it a kebab. So, and there's parts of Australia, like if I go to see my mate in Darwin a fair bit, and in Darwin they call it a kebab, whereas in South Australia we call it a gyros with a Y. So
okay.
It's too confusing.
But yeah, I often think of a kebab as one of those little fat sausage square sort of things.
Yeah, that's what I was always brought up with. But going everywhere else now, it's good because you get to see a different side of it. And they're a little bit different. The Greeks put chips in their gyroses, which is actually nice. I didn't think I'd like it, but it is good. Whereas the Turks don't. They tend to put more like capsicum or peppers, as they call it. They put that in there. So, but that's good. It's all learning.
We'll certainly get to see it in August, September next year. So.
Yeah, it's exciting.
That'd be a good one because that's a boat cruise too. That's a 10-day boat cruise from
where does
Rome.
It
Starts in Rome and it goes up. And I'm going to forget what all these places are called.
Yep.
But we've really got 2 days in and around Rome, then go back to Rome, get on the boat, and then go down to Sicily and all that and up around the other side. So that'll be good to see that part because I haven't seen that part. So I said to Mandy, I'll have to try to get off 25 kegs just to fucking walk around the heat.
It is hot.
Otherwise, I'll die.
You'll notice it in Rome. Well, when I was there, I think the week before they had just had like fires and it was the all-time low for. They've got like a canal kind of river that runs through the center of Rome, and that was at an all-time low. That was dry as anything. So. When I got there, it was about 40, but it's a different heat, so you'll notice the UV is different. And I've beat up a lot on this since I've been home, but and for most of you that know me, I'm quite pasty and don't like the sun too much. I put sunscreen on and when it's cloudy, but I walked around for about 4 or 5 hours one day in Rome I was wearing all black too, so attracting the sun and like tank top and no hat, nothing. Walked around, bottle of water. And I came back to the apartment and I was like slightly pink, nothing crazy. And then, but it kind of went brown after, and I never tanned, so I was not familiar with that. And then, for the rest of the trip, I was tanning and I couldn't believe it. I was like, it actually works. And I come home and it's like 16 degrees and I'm burnt to buggery and it's cloudy. And it's our UV's 13, whereas that day in Rome it was like 6 or 7. So
just doesn't pack the punch on the skin.
And you can feel it when you're outside, like it's just biting. You're like, hold on a minute, this isn't friendly. Whereas that's why you see in Europe, especially Italy, they're all lying on the beach and they all look like leather football, like a gridiron ball, because they've just been sitting in the sun all their life, and a lot of them don't have skin cancers and stuff, and it's crazy to think of because we put sunscreen on in the shade these days.
Well, we've just got to go out there for 8 minutes and you'll be red as hell.
Yeah, and speaking about Robbie, Robbie brought it up at that concert. Remember that he pulled that bloke out of the front row to talk about his song, and he didn't know anything about his music, which was funny, but he said, the ozone layer is not too kind down here to you. Because
he took the piss out of that guy, didn't he?
He always picks someone out. Everywhere I've seen him, and it's a bit of because a lot of people don't realise it's a routine for him, so he actually repeats a lot of what he says. But it's always funny because he picks someone new, and that guy he picked out copped it, didn't he? But then the next show he did, I think
Perth,
I think it was in Perth. He picked the next guy, and he didn't know anything either. And he goes, "Are these people? Does anyone know my music?" But yeah, it's funny. He's a performer, that man.
I know Neil Collins saw it. He was over in Perth to see that after. He obviously wasn't here in Adelaide. They were over in Perth anyway. But I know Andy and Kate like Perth. Like Caitlin once again's been all through Perth as well. So
been everywhere, mate. I haven't been in Perth. I've always wanted to get there, especially for footy. They got the new, the stadium there. So
the stadium in Perth is on par with the MetLife Stadium. And if you look, a big one. Yeah, the New Jersey one. If you look at New Jersey, that you can see 10 miles away coming. That's how big the frigging thing is. And that holds only 86, so it's not as big as the G.
The MetLife holds 86.
86.
Right. I think it's like a lot of people underestimate. Like on the TV, it looks the same as an AFL oval, but it's the same with football. Like with the soccer in the UK, the pitches are tiny. Like they're not big. Like from the goals to one end is almost like from our goals to just past the centre square. So it's not the same size. So yeah, when you see the MCG, it's a coliseum. Whereas then you watch MetLife, or I know when I went with Robbo and Aaron and Loopy, we went to the Rams Stadium in Los Angeles, which was the Coliseum, was what they called it. They don't actually play there anymore, but that would only hold. I think they had 100,000 there that night, so that was pretty big. But that's where they had the Olympics in LA. I can't remember.
Yeah,
that was in the 20s, I believe, it was the 20s or 30s. Not quite sure. They've had a few Olympics over there, but
they 84. We were in America, and
it actually might have been.
They had the LA,
and
then.
They sent that AFL footballer over there to. Remember, they were promoting the AFL. Yeah. I think you might be right. They've had a few, but the Coliseum was the original.
Yeah, I saw Brian Brown there at the airport.
Brian Brown.
Yeah, he looks still exactly the same these days.
Make me a red-eye bartender.
He's aged well. He's a hard nut. Old Brian Brown.
That movie kept me bartending for as long as I did. I always wanted to quit, and anytime I'd have a bad night, I'd just watch Cocktail. That's a great movie.
He said, "Stick with me, son, and I'll make you a star."
Yeah, Cocktails and Dreams, isn't it? Isn't that the bar?
Well, funny you bring that up, because your dad and I went and did a course purely on that film as well.
Yeah, I've heard this story.
And it was amazing. I had some really bright moment, and it would have only been in the last 4 years probably. And I thought, my certificate or my license would still be in there, at the Adelaide where we did it.
Yeah.
So of course I ring this girl up. I have an idiot moment. I ring her up and said, we did this bar course back in 1984. And the phone went quiet, and I thought,
the record's
what have I said now? I've said something stupid, haven't I? And she said, we don't go back that far on computer.
It would have been all on paper. They wouldn't have had computers back then.
And that's exactly what she said.
Go down to the dungeons to find that one.
I can't find your name because it would be written on a piece of paper somewhere, and we wouldn't even have those records anymore. No. So she said, you'll have to go and do your safe alcohol.
RSA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that again anyway, and that might have taken me still 4 hours to get that done on the computer.
But these days they give you the answers almost. They're like, if you get it wrong, they tell you what to do. But it's funny because you go overseas and you don't need an RSA to work anywhere. So there's people that, and that's why my personal opinion of hospitality in the Europe and UK is quite average.
So they don't ask for any of that at all. You just walk in.
They don't give a rat's. You just walk in. I did a shift at this pub in Lambeth, so it's like just over Lambeth Bridge. So so you got like Westminster Bridge and the next, I think it's the next couple along.
So in London?
Yeah. So central London. So Lambeth's kind of south, just on the south side of the Thames there. Nice little area, but it's more of a working area. And it was a pub that only opened Monday to Friday, so that attracted me because I was like, I can work in a pub and get me weekends off. Oh, that's crazy. And I did a shift there, and that wasn't it. You realize how good our bartenders are, and how actually like people over here can make a career out of it. Like you can work as a bartender and not comfortably. Sometimes it's a challenge doing everything, but you can rent or own a house and stay in that profession. Whereas over there, you're on about $8 or $9 an hour, which is like
$15.
$15.
Yeah, maybe $17, $18.
And everyone knows how expensive London is. So I'm thinking, how much overtime am I, going to be doing here? So I did my shift and said thanks, but no thanks.
See you later.
But
so you're always welcome back, mate.
Well, the lady that owned it was Ukrainian, so I actually felt a little bit bad because I asked her who worked there, and it was this one guy who was doing like 10-hour days. He was an artist though, so he liked having weekends off, so he could paint and whatnot.
You think 10, so he's only on 170 quid a day, is that for doing 10 hours?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, it's a lot of your life just down the drain. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. You got to find that work balance. And I was looking there, and I was like, because obviously I went over there. So obviously I wanted to work and I wanted to experience things, but I didn't want to spend my life over there just grinding. I think some people go over there and do that and forget why they're there. Like, you're so close to everywhere. So go and travel, or even doesn't have to be to Europe. Go to Manchester for the weekend, or go to Liverpool or Birmingham. Even Birmingham wasn't as good as what I thought it would be, but with the cricket and whatnot. But
well, I've got to get up to Liverpool to meet my old mate again. We met in Whistler there, and I've got some shirts printed for. Actually, Caitlin's got those shirts.
I know. I was there when she got the phone call from you, and
so I've got some more done now. So
she said, "Dad, give me the address," and you didn't know where he lives,
So I'll get up there. He's going to take me out for the night up there. Manny said, just go on your own and have some
You'll
fun.
like it. It's cool. The Scousers.
Okay.
Well, you don't pronounce it like that, but they're funny people, and they love their football. So pretend you're a Liverpool fan when you're there. Don't talk about Everton because they'll hate you.
All right. So I'll rock him with the Everton shirt.
Don't
get beat up.
Don't come in with the Everton, the Calvert-Lewin jersey. Don't come in with that on. They'll eat you alive. Well, depending on what part of Liverpool you're in. Like if you're on that Merseyside area, you'll be all right. But yeah,
I think it's on the Merseyside. I think the radio station's there.
Yeah.
Because it is like a little port, isn't it?
Yeah, kinda.
At the water's edge anyway. I think he's up there somewhere.
Everything's so close, and like even that's the biggest thing about living over there and here is like how close everything is over there. Like Manchester's only like barely an hour on the train to Liverpool, whereas an hour on a train here will get you to Ballarat. Like it's crazy like to comprehend how far away we are from everything. I remember flying to London and that we went from Melbourne and that took about 7 hours to get out of just Australia because we went diagonal. So we went across and I went over Broome.
Yeah.
And then my longest flight while living over there, I went to Turkey. I went over to Istanbul and that was 4 hours. But on the map, if you look at a map, it looks further, but that's just because it's a globe. So if you actually drag Australia and put it over Europe, we cover the entirety of Europe and we even we bite into Russia pretty much. It's crazy. Like we're a big place. Very big.
Yeah, well, we're surrounded by water, aren't we? We are a continent for sure.
Yeah, I can understand why music artists don't come here because we're just too far away.
So everything must be a chore to get here.
It is. To leave here and to come home it's a big journey.
And if you look really, it's Australia and New Zealand, and there's like as you go around the bars around the planet. Yeah. There's nothing there. There's Cape Horn. No. And there's probably something on the bottom of South America somewhere. Yeah. And there's nothing down there.
There's a lot of. I think there's that. Someone was saying there's that middle point. I think they call it the midpoint of the world or something, where there's a point in the ocean, and I believe it's the Pacific Ocean. If you were in the middle of that part, you're actually closer to the space station in Mars. Oh, not Mars. Yeah, the space station above Earth.
Than you are to land.
Than you are to America, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, or wherever's in that pocket. That's crazy. Like, I don't know the exact math on it, but it's not.
No, you'd be right.
And you got to remember that there was a lot of, people, especially World War II, that bombers crashed and they landed in that water and they were either never found or eaten by sharks or, eventually picked up or, But there's so much water out there that...
I know, I think Kato flew back via Fiji. And, like, if you go even Sydney, Brisbane, either one of those where you leave from, or even Melbourne, to Fiji, you knock off, all right, you're going sideways a little bit, but you're still knocking off a few of those long hours.
Yeah.
So even if you were to chop sort of 2 hours out of those 14, then you're back to Hawaii plus, which is only 9 plus, once again.
You think Hawaii's about 9.5 from Sydney, isn't it?
So you can deal with 9 hours between...
That's fine.
11, 12, 13 hours. If you're on an A380, you can get up and go down the back there and walk around, have some coffee and stand up without some prick thinking you're trying to blow the back of the plane off, you know. You stand near the toilet, then you're a fucking weirdo because you stand near the toilet, you know.
People stare at you.
The 777s and even the 787, you still don't get that galley like you do on the A380.
Yeah.
And I still think if you could fly Emirates or...
Oh, yeah, I came home Emirates, and that was unreal. And, like, I usually listen to music or a podcast on the way home, but I fell asleep for 9 hours straight and didn't even take a sleeping tablet. I was out. And that's because... I was lucky because there was the 2 middle seats were empty, and there was a girl sitting to the window, and she kind of put her feet diagonal, I put mine diagonal, and you just kind of both had room. And
nice.
I was out like a light, which is amazing. Like it makes flying so much easier. But when you're crammed in, I know Mum on the way home from London had some muscly South African bloke next to her that hadn't showered in a few weeks, and she was contemplating life at that point in time. I don't think she was too thrilled with that.
It's hard enough to be in the air for that amount of time, and if you sit there and listen, you hear.
Everybody gets sick.
Everybody's coughing, and don't forget your guts blow up.
Yeah.
So everybody's dropping methane out
And
every second.
You can't put your fucking shoes on when you get off because you got
fat feet,
got cankles. It's great.
But like you think your body is trying to expand up there because it's and like the reason they fly most of it in the dark is to stop the radiation coming through the plane.
Yeah.
That's the bees. That's all
hot.
it's about.
Yeah. No, it's
because water's the best resistor, but it's heavy. 100 by 100 by 100 is a kilogram. So if you were to line the plane with water, then you would fly more so on the long flights during the day because it wouldn't matter a fuck. But the plane would be
a heavy plane. You need to be your carry-on would be dropped to 15 kilos.
Absolutely.
Not 25. That was my problem. Everywhere I went, every different airline's got different baggage problems. So like a lot of your cheaper airlines will opt for 25, but then your bigger ones like Emirates, they don't give a fuck. They're like, here's bring on an elephant.
Doesn't the UK just have cheap flights, but you pay for all your luggage?
Yeah, so the good thing, and a lot of people say the UK is a home base. So a lot of people live in London just so they can dart around. And because of that, there's a lot of cheap airlines. So, and they're all good. Like I know a lot of people hang a lot of shit on Ryanair, for example, because they do cancel flights. But I think
so does Qantas.
That's what I mean. Everyone does these days. Jetstar's pretty bad. Qantas they've probably had the biggest fall from grace in many ways. But
I think they look a bit unstable at the minute still.
Yeah, well, they've cancelled another. I saw other flights yesterday, and then the Coldplay one was the biggest one. All those people going to the concert, and they just cancelled it and said we'll fly over the next day.
I'm fairly business minded with everything I do. Everything I look at, I sort of look in a business motto, and it's just amazing if business is doing well. You're happy to put your hand out and take your spoils.
Yep.
Now, business isn't always up.
No.
Half of business is down,
It's a roller coaster.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
And in the difficult times, the hand still comes out for this payment.
Yeah.
And I've always been not against it, but certainly if it's there in the good time, fuck yeah, put your hand out, go and update some tools, go and do whatever you got to do with your money, right? And no problem at all. But, you look at the man that was running Qantas.
Yeah.
He's now gone.
Mr. Joyce.
He's still walked out with...
He should be in jail.
So either way,
that's crazy.
He's walked out with payments, and you think, it's not there.
No. That whole COVID period, and we talk about inflation and people struggling with money and rent and whatnot, but the way they were the flights, and they've looked at the profits they were getting, and it's not just them, you got your corporations that are all involved in that, your big ones, and it's, it's sad to see because most of us can't, even just to go to Melbourne, I know, Jake and I were going to Melbourne and to see The Weeknd, who actually ended up cancelling his show, which was unfortunate, but to get there and back was about looking at 600 return to Melbourne.
Nah.
Even with the inflated prices of petrol, you may as well drive. It's crazy.
For $600, two guys in the car return.
You can go to Bali
would
for
cost you $200 in a car.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Because I just went to Ballarat with my uncle to see Post Malone play, and that was cool. And obviously it's a drive, but it's a shame it's not the Great Ocean Road when you're driving. A lot of it's just emptiness. But
that's a good trip.
You get to stop in some cool country towns though, and we were grading all the different bakeries. Keith won. Keith had the best pasty, so shout out to Keith. That was.
I do believe the pasties here in Australia anyway, let alone South Australia, are pretty good because you seem to go everywhere else and no one even knows what a fucking pasty's called.
Oh, I know. That was what I missed the most, and I've said this, and people back in London can vouch. I've said this a million times. Was the thing people ask, what do you miss? And if anyone knows at Port Wakefield, there's a bakery called Kipling's Bakery on the right as you enter in, and I said, what I'm hankering for is 2 pasties and a Farmers Union iced coffee. And Hannah and I were fortunate enough the other day to finally get there. I didn't get her to take a photo of me actually eating it, but I was so happy because it was just that's what I'd missed.
Oh, it's 5 kilograms in 12 minutes that you eat it. It's
and you just hoof it. And whereas over there they have their bakeries. I forget the name of the little chain they've got. There was one right near our place in Kilburn, but they sell sausage rolls, but they're almost like, that 4 and 20 style sausage roll. Really skinny and long.
4 and 20
just
stuff.
Cheap servo food. So, and their pies, which you'd think would be on point because they like their pies and you know,
Yep.
pie floaters and whatnot. I don't know. Is that an English thing, or do we make that a pie floater?
Well, I thought that was only here in Adelaide.
Maybe that's here. I don't know. I know Bumble, you know, the cricket commentator. He always comes over and he always waits for a pie.
Well,
floater.
we used to have the pie floater out at the casino, but I think that's not there anymore.
No, it's not. I mean, I think the only place you might be able to get one is Villiers still, or O'Connell might. I don't know.
More than likely.
But anyway, but yeah, their bakeries are shit. So that was probably the biggest thing I missed was space on the roads was one thing, like not as busy roads. I think that was what I was saying to Andy when they came down the last couple of weeks ago. I said the roads are a bit wider and there's not many cars, is there? It's different, you know, and you don't drive over there. And I think it's one thing I noticed, like, because we could go out any night of the week and you could get drunk. And that's why a lot of them do, because they'll go to the pub every night because no one drives. You catch the tube home or you get on a bus, depending on what time you get home, and you can go to work. Whereas a lot of us are worried, like if I drive here right now and you and I sink a few tins, I can't drive home and I'm stuck. My car's here, so then I've got to get someone to pick me up.
Yeah, well, you don't even go down that road, do you?
No. And the amount of times we could just go out and get, you know, you could get hammered on a Tuesday. I did it with Cato quite a few times. We'd go out and have some beers and then go home and go to work. Like that's just how they roll. It's a different culture, so but it's cool.
I know in New York when we were staying in East Harlem there, and we're on, I think it was stop one. Would have been 102 or something like that, and like it was a fairly coloured area. You know, it was probably 95.5. And like even that New Year's Eve where Mandy got fairly rattled, and when we got back there, we were fairly pie-eyed at 3 a.m. in an area that's not like it would have been back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, but we were still out of our league. And I remember this shadow coming up to me, and Reece said he was a fairly big, tall dude, and he said, "Hey, man, you need a hand?" And I said, "Fuck it, not now, mate." And I still to this day kick myself that I didn't even turn around
to talk to him.
I you know,
or look at him.
I should have looked at him and just said, "Thanks, dude," which I would normally do. And because of the moment, Mandy was fucked. I was fucking scared.
She almost fell on the tracks, is what I heard.
So as she got up, I've grabbed her, and then I've lost my momentum, and then Reece has grabbed us both before the train went straight past.
Yeah, it's good time.
And I told this guy that I'm fucking okay, you know.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, they're Australian. Don't worry about them."
Yeah, and like, you know, it could have gone two ways. He could have just smacked me up or whatever. But I kicked myself because I'm not like that normally.
Yeah,
but I might have been.
That's a stigma too. You've preempted that before you've gone over there. So like you know that the area you're staying in is not as diverse as some other areas.
It's Harlem.
Yeah, well, it's got a name. Like, you know, I mean, obviously the Harlem Globetrotters put that area on the map back in the day. But, it depends on where you stay, you know, the Bronx side of New York or even if you go down to Philly, or everything's different. But
like if you put the shoe on the other foot as well, if I saw two of those guys sitting in a chair that were pretty ordinary, I probably wouldn't go up to them anyway. But I would say that his nature, as Reece said, that he was just trying to help us out.
Yeah, that's it. Most people will.
Yeah, and I think that I was out of line, and I hope one day I see this guy there again and say, "Hey, sorry, dude, I don't even know what he looks like."
Yeah.
But I was disappointed because we'd got onto the underground right in Manhattan there, and there was a old drunk, Mandy called him an old alcoholic. He stank.
Right.
He smelled
like some
and
Valentine.
Hey, get out of the way! You know, he was like yelling, and I said, "You all right, mate?" And he said, "No, fucking help me!" You know, it was peak hour. There was 1,000 people on the
He's
carriage,
at the bottom of the barrel.
And I put my hand out as an Aussie just to say hey, and he said, "No, fucking touch me!" You know.
Yeah.
And like Cato's going, "How dare you!" Like I could see it in their face. Don't talk to my dad like that. He's only sort of helping you, and you know, as Aussies we do that sort of thing anyway. But be that as it may, I learned from that not to do that. You know, I didn't have to do that.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it, though, isn't it? Like, you get over there, and I guess our way over here, and, like, it doesn't always happen, you know, we're not sunshines and rainbows over here, too, but you do find that when you go overseas that the Australians, especially when I went on a lot of Kentuckys by myself, and I had to make friends, but the Australians are so easy to make friends with because that's how we just talk, and we just you know, there's no awkward tension. Whereas a lot of other nationalities, when they meet us, they have to get used to us pretty quick, but they do like us in the end. And I know there's that big thing of when you go to France, they'll notice you and they think you're a tourist and they'll hate you. But they'll only hate you if you're English or you're American. But then if they hear you're Australian, everything changes. And like we can talk about that later with the, you know, when I was going through the countryside of France. But there's places in France that are named after Australian. Like there's a school that's got "Never Forget Australia" on their wall, and they preach that day to day, just near Villers-Bretonneux, which is obviously a very well known cemetery there. But it's crazy, you know. And it's good. It's a good thing because when we go overseas, where I don't think we're hated anywhere. To be honest, you know, we're loved pretty much everywhere. Which, you know, no offense to our American listeners, but you know, you do. You know, there's an American in the restaurant when you're eating dinner. That's for sure.
I could also hear the Aussie. I could hear the Aussies on Fifth Avenue needing a piss as well.
There's that.
Open the fucking gates, you know. Like,
a few C words have been dropped. And, you know, there's an Australian around.
Look, to sit there and piss your pants in the cold, it was. I think it was 1 or 2 degrees, and to mentally piss your pants is quite difficult.
Well, your brain's telling you shouldn't be doing that.
Well, where do you put your dick? Like that's the other thing. It's like, do I point it down? Like, do I wet all my arsehole?
I don't think it matters. You may as well put your hands in the air and sung kumbaya.
So, you know, like I thought, you can't just sit there and open up and piss and splash everyone's legs either.
No, be reserved about it.
So, in the end, I looked at Reese and he said, "You're doing it, aren't you?" And I said, "I'm just about to, you know, like." Yeah. And then the crowd started to push then. So that stage where the Aussies can help them over there is if they shut down every second avenue. Yep. So let's say they kept 5th open, 7th and 9th.
Well, everything's boxed in.
That every second one is closed and then you go down the other one. But if let's say your show or your function place was on 44th Street, they'd take you down to 43, walk you around and come back in through the avenue that's closed and bring you onto that street. Mm-hmm. But then you've got one line every so often that just goes off to every second street. And then you've got another line that just carries on down the avenue. Yeah. Now, people don't think because they're just standing in line. And then by that stage, you can hear the Aussies that haven't had a piss since 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's when you hear us.
And it's telling, "Open the fucking gate, mate." And that's when I said to Reese, "I've held this piss on since, you know, probably not 2 o'clock, probably like 8:30. And I knew it wasn't a beer piss because I wouldn't have lasted that long anyway. No. But by that time,
it was an everything piss.
You could hear the Aussies real clear, "Open the fucking gate, mate."
Yeah. It's probably because we've drunk the most too, so we got the full bladders. But yeah, I don't know. It's like you were saying, we're definitely well regarded when you travel, but I don't know how they do that. I had that moment in Madrid when I was with the guys at that festival. We not a quiet moment like that. I didn't wear my pants, but I try and be pretty good about it. I'll go to the toilet or I'll, you know, find a tree at least. You know, perks of being a bloke. But I wasn't missing Robbie. Like we had got to a good spot and he was on, and I thought, fuck, what do I do? Like, well, I'm in a pickle here. So you just finish your beer and in it goes to the cup. But then I was trying to be polite about it. I didn't, because, you know, they will do it at concerts where they just fling the cup and you're going to get a face full of piss. So I was like, nah, I can't do that. I'm not that type of person. So I try to like drop it on the ground, but like keep it. I don't know why, but I kept it upright. And then all I remember is just this guy in front of me was bopping along and he's like kicked it with his heel and he's kicked it back onto his other foot and it's gone all over his foot. But he didn't even notice. He just kept going. I thought, fuck, that guy's he's copped a bucket.
I had a piss at Robbie's by the time it got to the last couple of songs there, and I thought, I knew it'd be touch and go towards the end there. Yeah. And I did try to get out. I said to man, I've got to go. I said, fuck, I'm not going to last another 3 songs.
So you found a fence?
And I couldn't get out. I was
crazy.
Trapped. So I come back, and fuck me, there's a kid sitting over to the right. I'm sitting on the ground. I didn't even know there was a kid at the concert. You know, there was one sitting over there, and then I had a Sheila just behind me here. Yeah. And I'm thinking, fuck, I've already passed neck. And
it's in that painful period too. You're like, it's starting to hurt.
So I had the can here. Yeah. And I've ripped the can open with my fingers. I've got fairly tough hands. Yeah. So I've gone in there. I've ripped the tab off. Yeah. And then I've gone in. There's one finger I stabbed a nerve, so it hasn't got as much feeling as the other ones.
Right, so you can use it a bit
and
more.
I've got in there
Bang.
And, I'm listening to "It's Gonna Be," I'm listening to Robbie singing.
And you're just trying to get your dick caught in the fucking can.
Well, I've got it to the point where, bang, I've torn it.
Oh, okay, you did get through it.
You beauty. So then I could start to peel it out. And then then you've got that death collar sitting around there. So then you've got to get your budgie out and put him in there and try not to wiggle too much. And you're going to fill that up pretty close to the top. And there's no splash point, there's no lights, there's no nothing.
You're just going.
And then Margaret's sitting here on my right, and there's little Johnny on the floor.
He's watching. He's a bit confused.
And I've sort of got my dick in there, and it's dark. I don't know the level of the can, but I can feel it waiting fairly.
Yep.
So anyway, by that stage, you don't care about your flick out. I've just pulled him out and put him in the zipper, and whatever comes from there is whatever. So then you've got hold of the can for you
don't know where to put it.
Where do I put the fucking can? Because, as I said, if I put it down directly in front of me, Mandy steps backward and, there'll be piss up her because she's probably got bare feet on or whatever, So I thought, I'll hang on to the very end, and then as soon as we go to move out, it'll be more of a trussle. Everyone will be walking over everyone's drink bottles.
Doesn't matter. Or stepping on people.
So once everybody started moving, I just put it down like that.
Yeah.
Man, he said, "Did you piss behind me?" I said, "Fuck, I had no choice. I couldn't get out."
You're done.
And I'd had 10.
Was Andy and Kato standing there?
Yeah, they were just there in front of me on the right.
There you go. Don't know if Andy noticed that or not.
He wouldn't. No, they wouldn't have even known.
That's
they still
right.
don't know now. So
now he knows.
But it was a lot of fun. It was good to mentally get through it because I had to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And just lucky.
Then you feel $1 million.
Luckily, I could tear it out, and then you knew you were safe to get on the bus.
Yeah, it's a horrible feeling being caught. We had that quite a few times in the UK. You get caught in the public transport because the tubes don't have toilets. Yeah. So keep that in mind for when you're there.
Yeah, okay. Because like New York does, that was the beauty of their carriages.
It's more, which is funny because America you think would be worse, but the UK for a while here they had a lot of terrorism threats. A lot of them did actually happen. So they don't have toilets and bins in like tubes.
Makes.
Which is annoying though, because like where Andy lives is like out near Stratford, so the train from there. Is
it an hour or?
Yeah, about there. You get two. I remember the Uber one night. It was like an hour.
Still New York to Connecticut, so still a fair way.
Yeah, it's a journey, which is funny because London doesn't look big on the map, but those stops do add up, and like, it feels like you're on the tube not very long, but when you need to go to the toilet, it feels like forever, and you can't go anywhere, and like you're stuck. Like I've seen people do many things when they get off and get onto the track quickly. But but that's all the terrorism things because they had. I know it was around about 2010. They had they had acid attacks. That was quite horrible. But bomb threats and stuff with bins.
there was an underground there that they did. Somebody put something in there, didn't they?
Yeah, they had a crack at a few. I don't know the exact details of it, but unfortunately there was a few spots which has ruined it for everyone else. So. And a lot of places in Europe you have to pay to pee, which most people, especially Australians, don't want to pay to piss. So
no, that's right. Goddamn luxury.
Yeah, just go find a tree somewhere. You don't need it. Even girls pop a squat. You'll be right. Get the shiwi out.
Well, that's it. They do it in November at the horse race as well, don't they?
So they're all dressed up to the nines and then they're squatting.
Yeah, they all become pretty ordinary at the end of it. Oh well, that's good. Well, what do you want to do? Let's talk about the trip with Alf if you want to.
Yep.
If you start on that one, I'll go grab us a few beers out of the fridge.
Sounds like a good idea.
You were going there to find a grave, weren't you?
Yep. Yeah, so who he's named after, so my grandpa, Alfie, or Alfred, is named after Alfred Sharrock Dodson, who was a rear gunner in 1943 in the RAAF, so he was in a Lancaster bomber. We went over there to he had actually already been with my nan. He'd already travelled over there and seen his grave, but I'd just finished high school and I was in that kind of gap year period, so I wanted to, I didn't want to go straight into uni, so I thought, I'll travel, and I told him the idea, and he was like, yep, let's do it. So basically went over there with him, and it was cool because he'd been over there a lot. He's a chartered accountant, so
yep.
Basically he planned out a lot of it, which was cool. We got the drivers ready, and we ended up flying over, landed in London, and spent about a week in London. So that was cool. I gave me a taste for London, which is hence why I went back. But basically, went over there and we ended up in Germany. And like I was touching on earlier with Munich, we went to Munich and Alf's buried in a cemetery in Dernbach, which is about half an hour from Munich. So basically we can get an Uber out there, but we got actually, typical Pop in his style. He likes to ride in a luxury, the great man. So
does filter through, doesn't it?
No mucking around. He's lovely. I'm like that too. Like, a lot of my mates were staying in hostels while they were away, and I'd rather stay in a 2-star hotel and have my own room than sleep with 7 other people. So
back that, I couldn't do it anyway. I couldn't do it.
Bed bugs and shit.
I just couldn't do it. I sit there and snore and fart and fucking wake up.
And it's horrible. So I'm big on, if you can afford. Well, I think if you save for a few more months extra, you can afford to do it.
I'd back that
properly.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we went out there in almost a limo. My shit, this guy's picked us up and took us out there. And, so like I said, it's about half an hour. And we got out there and saw his grave. And we'd actually brought over a flask of sand from Henley Beach. So his family used to, they used to live in down at Henley. So took a flask of sand and tipped that on the grave and gave it a pat and had a drink and chatted to him for a bit, and then off we went. So, but I'm going to go back there when I head back over in August, September to see that spot. And he's asked me if we can take another flask of sand. So obviously they don't check that too well in borders. I don't think they check your suitcase, but I mean, it's not that it's crazy. It's just
at least South Australian beach sand's clean, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can understand if you were bringing it from somewhere in Asia, there'd be a problem.
But even so, it's still a.
It is, yeah. Well, I brought some home because on that same tour we went to Omaha Beach, which if anyone knows the movie Saving Private Ryan, we went to that beach, and they tell you not to disturb the soil, but in the same space they've got a gift shop that sells empty glass jars that have D-Day Omaha Beach on it. So of course we bought that, and then I ended up going down to the beach and I took a flask of sands and I just stuck it in my suitcase and came home scot-free. So
do they seal that up properly? Like, do they shrink wrap it or?
Nah, that one they didn't. Just had a cork in the top. It was like a message in a bottle, So I've still got it. It's cool, got a bit of soil at home. And I wanted to do it when I went to Gallipoli. I wanted to do it with the Lone Pine. I went to Lone Pine and took a pine cone, and I actually took it back to London. So I did get it. But Europe's pretty lax. Like,
where'd the pine cone come from here?
No, pine cone from Lone Pine.
Oh, okay.
So an actual pine. So I thought that'd be cool to bring home. I've got a flask of sand from Omaha, and then I've got a pine cone from a Lone Pine. Like, I'm not fucking around. Like, I've got some cool things. And then I thought, that'll be cool. And I thought, it dawned on me just as I was getting ready to fly back to Europe and do my couple months and then travel eventually home. And I thought, fuck, I don't want to be the Chappelle Corby and get caught in the news for a bit of... I mean, they probably wouldn't. They just seize it. And someone was telling me, because her old man used to work in Borders Forces, that they just spray. I think a lot of woods they will just spray with this thing and it kills whatever's in it, and then they give it back to you.
I know they're strange from Fiji and Vila and Vanuatu and all that.
Yeah.
But all the black people sell you the spears, and as soon as you get to Sydney, they take them all off you.
Right, yeah. So it's dodgy. Yeah, that's the thing. And like they did that in Turkey, because I bought a Trojan horse, the whole Troy thing, and I carried it around for months. And I got back to Darwin, and I was like, I swear to God, if I don't get allowed to bring this in, I've just carried, because it's heavy. I've carried this around. Did
it come in?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, and it was actually a bit of an insult, because the lady, I took it out and I was being honest. I was like, hey, I've bought this. I've lugged it around for 3 months. And she goes, oh, that's fine. I don't even think it's real wood. And I was like, oh, thanks. That's cool. It's probably plastic, just burnt to look like wood. But yeah, anyway, I went a bit off topic there. But so we did all that, and obviously went over there and saw the big fella's grave. And
was there emotion in there for you?
Massively, yeah. At that time, I was still young, so I was 19, and obviously I knew a fair bit about it. And I guess, if you don't mind me touching on it quickly, I guess.
Sure, go for it.
Basically, he was a rear gunner, which in a Lancaster. So if you know those positions of the plane, they used to call it was nicknamed the glass coffin. So you had to be under 5'9", I believe, to even be in there. Yeah, he was about 5'7", so he wasn't a tall man. I say man, he's only 19, which is the other crazy part. So, he's a lad.
Boy.
He's
still a boy. So he's a rear gunner.
So he enlisted. So they were Kapunda family originally, and then moved to Henley. But basically he enlisted, got in, went over there in 43, and was based in northern UK. There's a base up there. I can't remember the exact name. I know it's towards Manchester way. But anyway, they were up there, and part of the Squadron 467, which I learned. I didn't even realise, but there's a museum in London, the Imperial War Museum, which is in Lambeth, and we went there, and they've got the front of a Lancaster that's still there, and it completed 49 bombing raids.
Wow!
Which, if anyone knows anything about that time of the world, that's crazy. Like that's most planes went out and were shot down in the first hit, but that one Australian Lancaster completed 49 raids, and it was nicknamed Old Fred. And I looked at it, and I read through it, and it said on there it was Squadron 467, and that was F for Fred, and Alf was in G for George. So it's crazy that those two planes, at some point in time, would have looked at each other, and seeing that in a museum now, and then seeing the grave, it's really crazy to think of. But yeah, basically he went over, and they were bombing what would have been that Munich region, I guess, and Dernbach, and they were hit in September of 43, and yeah, it's hard to with where he was in the plane. As soon as they're hit, you're pretty much stuffed, because obviously naturally a plane will nosedive. If you're at the back of a plane, gravity's not in your favor, and I've seen an example of how to get out of the rear gunner, and so you basically there's a crank to your right, and you have to crank this machinery to the left, which has got 4 Browning machine guns in the back, so it's not light. You got to crank that, and it'll go to the left, and that's where you can grab your parachute, and you got to put it on.
Oh, so they're not even
no.
parachuted.
If that was me,
there's not enough room.
There's not enough room. I was like, you'd like to wear it before you even go up, but you can't. So you got to remember he's falling downwards, so he's got to crank that to put that on, and then crank it back to the right, and on the right-hand side there's a door which he would then turn, and he could fall backwards out of the plane. Now, that's impossible. Maybe if you're gliding, you'd be okay, but if you're hit directly, you're falling, and you'd probably call good night and have probably another 30 seconds to yourself, and that's about it. So, but the coolest part about all of that is that in the flight records of that specific plane that he was in, and we've got the copies of this, it's noted, the navigator had noted that the rear gunner had taken down a Messerschmitt. So he actually...
On the way down,
No, not on the way down, during the flight. So he'd got one, which... And I've read a whole million different things about this, but to actually shoot down another... Messerschmitt's another form of a Spitfire or a Mustang, or... It's a quick plane. To actually shoot that down with a machine gun that's only shooting 303s, that's pretty crazy, So he got one, and then, unfortunately... that was that. But, he's buried there in Dernbach, and there's the coolest part as well was that I believe there's 8 people in each plane. It might be 6 or 8 people in each plane, and they're all from different countries. So there was about 2 Canadians, a couple Brits, and then a couple Aussies all together. And he has his own stone. He's separate, but there's about 3 or 4 blokes that they actually join the headstones together, because probably the front of the plane, you can't really distinguish who's who, which is pretty sad. But no, it was cool. So we went there and did all that, which I recommend anyone to do. That was, if you've got a family member over, even if you don't, just do it. Like it's a cool place. And what I loved the most was when we were leaving, there was a German guy walking around. He was just mowing the lawns, fertilizing the flowers, doing everything. And Pop walked over and gave him, I believe he gave him €100 as a tip, and he said thanks for looking after him. And that was cool, because he doesn't have to do that, especially you got to think about it from our point of view. Imagine if someone invaded Australia. Well, not invaded because they started it, but imagine there was a conflict in Australia and we'll say Japanese, for example, and we're watering their cemetery and stuff. So it's a tough thing for them too. So, because I'm sure he would have had relatives that were killed with those bombs they were dropping. So yeah, I think it's just a moment where everyone goes, we're past that. Well, should be past that. I mean, there's current conflicts, but no, that was amazing. So I love doing that, and it was doing that with Pop as well. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's one of the rare ones, isn't it? That you get the time to line up with your grandpa.
Yeah.
At that time of your life where, you know, your world's still beginning and his world's sort of, you know,
everything's changing. Yeah.
So to get the opportunity to do that anyway.
Yeah.
With your granddad, that's fantastic.
I loved it because I mean at that same time, some other pops, so mum's dad, Bobby. We all know well. He he was on the decline pretty fast, and I think that hit me. I was like, I think you need to make the most of things. So I thought, bugger it, Alfie's still fit, and he still is today. Touch wood, big fella.
He's a good man. He's a good man.
So we're like, bugger this, let's go overseas, and we were able to do that. There was only one day he chickened out. He couldn't walk. He had a sore ankle. So
I rang your dad on I forget what day it was now. It might have been Monday. I was up at Walker Flat there, and
the old shack.
The shack's just gone. It was just
the water would have just
a concrete slab on the floor.
It wasn't the most sturdiest house. I think if that water was as strong as it was, that house was gone. Because they rebuilt it a bit when we sold it. I know they painted it white. That was all I remember. But it was still single story. So,
it was excellent. Like you could sit there in the kitchen and like you'd sit out there every night and listen to Alf stories. Anyway, like once the bottles of wine came out and everyone sat around his chin, and he, the amount of stories that he told us up there, especially when George was still alive as well. He was like my grandpa as well.
Yeah.
Like George was a terrific fella to everybody. And like to see the difference between George and Alf.
Yeah.
He had some good sperm. The old bricklayers can let him out, But, those days, I was your age up there, growing up. And I probably spent more time with George and Alf than I did with my...
Yeah, it was like your second family.
Yeah, it was excellent fun. And Manny was there and Sue was there. And
I've always said I wanted a time machine so we could go back and watch some of this stuff. Because, I mean, obviously I grew up with a little bit of it. I was a kid. So to actually be around when, the days when you guys would shoot the 303 against the cliff face at the shack.
Your dad would shoot the buses going
down
or bloody...
You boys would sink the bloody sink the boat, not put the bungs in.
They did. I got in trouble that night because I'd told them to pull their head in a bit. And, because I think the last bottle of port went down with the boat.
The last bottle. So how many bottles of port?
Oh, I don't know. And the boat and everything else that went with it. And Mandy said it's time to go to bed, Whitey.
Yeah, it's probably done.
So I dragged them out they were fully laden with jumpers on. It was cold.
Fuck. Well, it would have been, yeah.
So by the time I'd pulled them out of the water, and Mandy said it's time for you to go to bed. So I got told pretty quickly.
Which one did you sleep? Because there was like there's 3 or 4 different rooms. Were you at the back? Would you? Because I used to get moved around all the time. But no, it was a cool shack, and I remember it was pretty basic. When I was young there, but you'd have a shower in the bloody basin. There was no bath. There was like a trough.
It was just the shack was that good that it was a shack. It wasn't anything bar a shack.
Yeah.
And I say that in total respect because anything else wouldn't have fitted anyway.
Yeah.
And like the chunks of steak are going to the barbie, and that would all be sizzling while. Yeah. Alf will open up another bottle.
Old grandfather 20 port's been open.
The fire's burning, and like you just hear all the stories because, we used to, when Alf was living there on, what's that road called?
Hancock.
Hancock Road there.
Near St Agnes Primary.
That every Sunday morning he'd come out and tell us, the rear gun stories.
Yeah.
And we'd sit around there every Sunday morning till lunchtime. Yeah. Hearing all his stories.
Well, that was the biggest thing why I wanted to go overseas with him, because I grew up, like, he got my interest into that military stuff, and most people that know me know that I love talking about it, so he got me interested in that stuff, so I was like, well, you're coming with me, you know what I mean? Like,
you would have really ended up there as well, wouldn't you?
As in?
An officer.
I tried,
But you probably would have ended up as an officer in the army somewhere.
Oh, you'd think so, yeah. I mean, so I originally, obviously, my whole, I guess, growing up, I loved that stuff. And, I had a crack. I broke my arm really, really bad when I was
Because it was really only based on your elbow, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I just started high school, and I basically completely shattered my elbow, and had a full reconstruction and had the wires put in and all that kind of stuff. And it was a shit show for about 6 months. My first, going to high school, I had first few weeks I was in like a cast that looked like I was dressed as a gladiator. I had this massive fucking shield on my arm.
Oh, 301.
I didn't even go on school camp, which sucked as well, because that's where people were making friends. It's a big thing going from primary school to high school, so you had to learn and meet people. And I missed out on all of that because, I was walking around with one arm. And, basically, I don't know.
What was the hang up with the? All right, there's an injury, of course. As an officer, though, like, what was the big deal?
Well, so I passed all the tests, and mental and like the written tests, so like maths and English and all that kind of stuff. But it was in my closing interview, they said you're subject. I still remember the words. You're subject to bone degeneration, which in basic terms is arthritis, which is everyone. Everybody's got their own things, which is funny. And I remember I was so pissed off. I remember telling the dad, I was like, fuck, I'll get down and do 50 push-ups right now and just prove that my elbow is fine. You know what I mean? But I had applied for artillery, so that was lifting heavy objects. And I think they looked at that.
Okay, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so I was happy to change. Like, I didn't care what I did. I was more just, I want to be in there. And they were like, no, that's not happening. And it sucked because my two best mates at the time got in. So they went off, and I stayed back here. So I then applied for uni and got into uni and started studying. And funnily enough, a while down the track, because I don't think the Army, they got that many numbers. I think they're trying to increase recruitment.
That's what I thought. You could have been moved to another department,
But then they emailed me again going, oh, we've reconsidered everything, and we reckon you're ready. And then I guess being young, I was like, fuck you. Nah. It's not meant to be.
It does leave a stain, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it sucked. It's something you're growing up with. You wanted to do all your life, and then they told you to get fucked. So.
Yeah. And probably if you did it again, and you were of that age group again, probably the right answer was probably, okay, let's have another look at it anyway.
Yeah.
Even
do a few more tests.
Take the bad taste out of our egos, because we bruise pretty easy.
Yeah.
And say, all right, let's all just toughen up and let's just say, okay, let's have another look and see where we can go. If it's not where you wanted, but it's somewhere close to it, well, just open that door up. Let's go through that and see where it.
Yeah.
Eventually you're probably going to end up there somewhere anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the bit I couldn't quite understand, but you put that to bed for me anyway.
Yeah, that was a shit one, but I mean, just recently, like 2 days ago, my cousin graduated ADFA, so she's now a naval officer. I know she's still got a bit to go.
I did see that.
Congratulations to her. But she, which was cool because obviously you were saying, with Alfie being the patriarch of all that military stuff, he's always wanted a child or a grandchild to be, that officer in a gentleman style. And seeing the other day the photo of him and her together, I was like, that was perfect. Like, that was cool. Like, you could see how happy he was. So I was like, he got what he wanted.
Grandpa with Demi Moore sitting alongside
Literally,
of him.
well, like Dad, Louise, me, Jack, no one, Elliot, none of us have ever done that. And Tani, she's brain. So they've, he got, well, it sounds silly, but he got what he wanted. Like, he was so happy seeing that. And I know she's very good at what she does. I know she's trying to get into some course that
he was very proud.
Allows her to go to Hawaii is the next place. She had option Hawaii, San Diego, or Guam. Fuck. I reckon there's a few worse spots. Probably not Guam, but San Diego or Hawaii is a pretty good place to be sent to continue that.
I don't know whether you want to talk about it or not. How did you deal with that emotion when the initial knock was no? Were you angry? Did you say, fuck this, I've spent really the last X amount of years trying to get my head into that space.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I've been knocked on a technicality that is bullshit, especially that we haven't got a trillion people that we can choose bright minds from. Now, the beauty of Australians are the majority of us are bright-minded.
Yep.
They always say, the Aussies lazy, but
in our own way.
We do use our brains pretty well. We use our brains, not our bodies so much,
Yeah.
Did you get help on that? Did you get through it with Mum and Dad? Or
I felt pretty shit. I remember, it's a while ago now.
It'd be a bad taste, I get it.
Yeah, it was about, 9 years ago now, I guess. But, it's pretty average. Like I said, you grow up wanting to always do that. I ended up wanting to be like an armament officer. So like you know me. Well, once again with Alfie, I was brought up with firearms. So I always find that stuff cool. So I always wanted to be the guy that loaded guns, fixed guns, altered guns, all that kind of stuff. So that was what I wanted to get into. And yeah, I think it was a bit of a kick in the guts. But I know a lot of people at that time and point were saying no, that it wasn't meant to be. There's always something else. And then because I didn't get in, I then went to Europe with Pop. So if I got into the army that day,
you wouldn't have done that.
I never did anything I just told you about. So it's funny how
it all
that then goes around,
together.
and that can link into the next 10 years of my life because there's so many different things. If I had done this, you don't do that. So you can't dwell on it. You're like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like a lot of it might have been, as a kid growing up, you watched a lot of movies, heard a lot of things with Pop, and I always wanted to be that. But I know it's not all sunshines and rainbows in that field too, So, things happen for a reason.
For sure. Yeah, here. I think you did well maturely to get through that anyway. So, But what about if we now probably move on a little bit to Gallipoli? Let me just think about where we'll go from here.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'll go grab us a couple of beers and we'll be back shortly, continuing. So, but that's excellent stuff, mate. What you've been through already, especially at your age, I think that what you've seen in those short years from becoming a man, I suppose, of 18 to where you are today, you've done a lot and you've packed a lot in there, and I think it's a credit to you. I think you've got to be smart. You've done your university. You've got through that and got all that done, which is now out of the way. So you've done that compulsory 4 years or whatever that everybody's got to do. So that's in your favour now, that that certificate or whatever that can take you forward from here is done and out the way. Because I know Reese over in Vancouver at the moment, he's still got a fair bit to do when he gets back as well.
He's having a good time over there, though.
He certainly, and I don't want him to rush back with that either. I want him. He's met Debbie, which is fantastic, and we were lucky enough to have a bit of time with her. And
she's cool.
And for someone that's 21, she's got a really good head on her as well. So, and I think it's been good for Mandy and myself to have some of these partners come in now. And
well, you're not really used to it, though, are you?
No, as a parent too, I think it's always
Cato's always waited for the right one.
Always humbling that not only are they friends with people, but good people, and they're happy.
Yep.
You really are sad to hear the stories of people that don't have friends and grow up on their own and have a horrible life. We're lucky, touch wood, that we're all a good class of people that and we all look out for each other and that. So, but overall, no, I think it's excellent what you've achieved to get to this point. We've certainly got more to talk about in regards to. We haven't even got to Gallipoli yet, so let's go to Gallipoli. I know that you did the dawn service once or twice.
Once. Did once, yeah.
And I think you might have got on the telly on
that
one,
got my
didn't
cameo.
you?
Yeah, that was cool.
How did that line up?
Yeah, so basically ended up. Well, it's actually before I went away. So before I left, I had the idea that I wanted to go and do that. I've always wanted to do that. I think everybody should do that.
I think so.
And I told, obviously, Grandma, Alfie and Nancy that I would, was going to be doing that. And they did a little bit of digging, and we actually found out, and it's crazy. We've got a lot of family members that served. And in World War II, it's all mostly Alfie's side. There's a couple on Nana Helen's side as well. But basically, got 10 to 15 family members on that side that have served. And then on Nan's side, there's a couple more. But basically, before I left, they were like, oh, there's a relative that actually fought in Gallipoli. I was like, shit, that's crazy.
Is that on the Bastian side?
Yeah, Bastian side. So went over there, went to his grave and ended up on TV over there, and had to do a bit of a cameo about that. But before I even went there, I was in London, and the Channel 7 reporters were like, "Hey, we want you to do a chat about it all," and which we did, and I did, and I loved it. It was so fun. It's obviously an emotional place, especially because the Channel 7 reporters are they want to bait you a bit to get into it, and you talk about what happened, and it's always an emotional thing. And I remember at the end he was like, "Oh, and tell us, and how old is he?" And I was like, "Oh, 26." And how old are you, Will? 26. So obviously it hits you, and that's what they want, because that's that.
They want the theatre, don't they?
Yeah, they want the theatre of it. So no, it was good. I loved every bit of it. But Gallipoli as a place, it's such a special place because, like, when we talked about Germany and stuff, and not to say that the Germans, don't resent any of what happened, but the Turks are so loving, and I think there was a bit of a morale of, we both shouldn't have been there doing that to each other. Neither party wanted to be there, and you hear so many. I've read so many stories and heard so many stories about, specifically, like, everyone knows that movie Gallipoli, right? That last scene at the neck, which is very famous for that scene where he runs over the top and sprints for 50 metres and gets gunned down. And that specific scene is based on, there was 4 waves of Western Australian light horse that were there. And the first 5 waves there was. The first 3 waves had already gone over the top and just been mowed down. Like, yeah, literally how it was. Getting absolutely nowhere. And the movie depicts the 4th wave about to go over, and they do that little Hollywoodization of what's happening. And he goes over the top and gets gunned down. But what they don't talk about is the Turks were they were yelling at them to stop sending blokes over. Like, we're not going to miss. Like, you've got almost 100 yards of space here, because a lot of people were saying the movie wasn't correct. Like, he ran for miles, the trenches were only 10 meters apart. No, that specific spot, you can see in the photos I've taken of it, it's a massive area of land. So they definitely had to run that far, and they were talking about how the marker flags had been seen in the trench, which was a load of shit. But I guess that narrative of Australia as well is that we always blame the Brits for that. That was actually an Australian officer that was ordering those, so that can't be factual in terms of what we say there. But it's an amazing place to just sit there and go, wow, like, what's happening. And then obviously the dawn service itself, I got to do that with a lad I was playing football with in London.
Just remember where you are.
Yep.
Where the beach is.
Yep.
The geography. Mm-hmm. What's the ocean? Is that northeast, southwest?
That's the Aegean. So if anyone knows the movie Troy or the Trojan Horse, so that whole area is basically what that movie, not the movie itself, but that Troy war, that the Trojan War that happened with Achilles and Hector, and that's that entire region. Most people don't even realise it's actually the same spot. So Troy is right next to Gallipoli.
So does the sun come up over the hill or over the water in the morning?
It would be
over the hill, is it?
Over the hill, yeah, I believe.
So it'd be east. So if Gallipoli's north...
No, hold on, I reckon it's behind. So where we were... Yeah, because Australia's that way. Yeah, so it'd be coming from behind, I believe. It's funny, you don't really actually think
it doesn't matter.
You don't really think about it when you...
I was just trying to think whether the sun comes up over the water or it comes up over the hills.
I reckon it came from behind us, because I've taken photos. Yeah, it would. It did come from behind us, because there's a lot of peaks that are like very famous Gallipoli shots of that beach.
Yep.
And the sun's coming from that way. So, it's an amazing thing. And they actually put LED lights along the sand. So even when it's dark in those, it's about 2 a.m., 3 a.m., the water's lit up the whole time. And it's really cool to see how they've done that. And then they had a documentary that Sam Neill was directing the whole time so it kind of sucked, because a lot of people were trying to sleep. So there's a few funny photos of us trying to get some shut eye. And Sammy Neill was talking about just the actual battle itself, and the war. But Yeah, the the ceremony kicks off obviously around 5:20 kind of around there, just as the sun's starting to come up, and then and they do they don't just do an Australian one, they do New Zealand and they do Turkish as well. So and the Turkish soldiers, they don't muck around like the modern ones. I know the old ones didn't either, but the modern ones, like the way they march, they're so aggressive, so angry, which is really like intimidating to see. I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of them again, that's for sure. But yeah, so they do the ceremony and they play the last post, and the sun comes up, and it was amazing. And I got to do it with a lot of people. A couple of them had served as well. One of them was a doggy, so he was a dog handler. That was his job, was to find IEDs in Afghanistan. So he had some amazing stories to tell us too. You know, after a few beers, and we talked about that, some sad stories and some cool stories. So, but yes, we did that, and then we were actually a little bit naughty. We were supposed to walk back along the path where you could either walk or you'd get a bus up to Lone Pine. So the Australians went to Lone Pine and New Zealanders went to Chinook Bear, which is the most prominent battles for both sides the whole time. And yeah, we the guy I was with at the time, he had done a bit of research and found that there was actually a little pathway that kind of went through the middle, but it wasn't really a path. It's like an old path. Anyway, he's like, nah, let's do this. We're all, you know, young enough. We can walk this. So we put our backpacks on and we hiked up this hill. And it was really cool. We wound our way through, got some cool views, but it was really sad. There was like a cemetery in the middle of about 100 blokes. And if you didn't walk that way, no one would ever know that's there. So it was really weird. So we stopped there, had a look around, and, you know, it's crazy to see, you know, some of the there was a bloke there that was like 14, you know. It's like, how did he even enlist? Like, what's happened there? And then we cut through and we ended up on the back end of Lone Pine. And it was funny because there were security guards there.
How far is Lone Pine from?
Yeah, so from the beach where the main ceremony is, Lone Pine would be like, it's not really, because it's all hills. It's like a kilometre. It's not far. Like, okay. The biggest thing to conceptualize with Gallipoli is the whole battle was in, you know, a few miles radius. And it was, if they had achieved what they wanted to in those first few days, they could have pushed through quite easily. But unfortunately, what happened at Suvla Bay, where, you know, it's a whole other story, but they didn't push through. It was a stalemate. We were stuck there for 8 months. But yeah, so if we cut through and we walked in backwards to Lone Pine and got this nice little row of seats, and everyone was looking at us going, "How did you get here? We didn't see you the whole time."
There was one of the clips came through on the phone today against it was either English versus German, and it was Christmas Day, and did you see it? And the cap came up, and they had a game of soccer for half an hour until the bomb started.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
See you, Vortloff.
Yeah.
Yes, good luck, Gary. You know, like we'll see you out there, rah rah rah. But you know, at the end of the day. Elon Musk talking about that, what we were talking about earlier on, was that the Russian young men really don't hate the Ukraine
well, they're
men.
Pretty much the same. Like, Ukraine used to be a part of it, which is why the whole problem is.
They don't know each other, like, seriously. But the ones at the top know each other, and they're getting rid of all these... I think he called them butterflies or whatever, you know, young men.
Yeah.
Which is just a total waste of life.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the beginning of the war and the end of the war is pretty well exactly how it started and how it finished, minus your 38 million dead.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
I think in terms of all of that, like, Russia's always used the same tactic of, because they obviously have more people than anyone ever. So they use what they call a steamrolling tactic, and they're doing it now. They just overwhelmed by numbers. Like back in World War I, they were charging blokes with pitchforks. They didn't have guns. And in World War II, they would give one bloke a gun and one bloke behind him a magazine. So when the guy in front would die, the other guy would pick up the gun. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So they don't care. And they're doing the same thing now, and they reckon that the casualties are over about 400,000, I was reading the other day. But that doesn't get reported because it's all, like, media's cut off. So...
Yeah.
But it's a sad thing in all of it. But anyway, I love doing all of that. And like I said, I recommend anyone if they wanted to go over there and do it.
Yeah, because I think it's changing now where they're doing the long distance ballistic missiles that are rather than the tanks that are suicide machines, because they're just hot spots that you can put anything to blow them up.
Yeah.
So they're not really any use.
They use those javelin missiles, so you don't even really have to look at your target. It just kind of locks on. So it's crazy.
You know, rather than all that trench warfare that, you know, was done all those years ago. That it's
but have we learnt? It doesn't matter if you're using a pitchfork or you're using a javelin. Like,
no.
The same bullshit's happening. It's
but
just
what they're saying now is the ground that they took from Ukraine has just been pulled its way back anyway, that the ground one has now been lost anyway. So once again, if you go to the beginning of the war to the end of the war and you say, well, everybody lost 19 million each in World War II, there's a total of 38 million people that died, which was double World War One. Yeah.
Well, I mean, getting back to it, sorry, but that's what baffled me the most about being at Gallipoli was, and we it's always a national icon, but basically, I think roughly it's 12,000 roughly Australian deaths at Gallipoli in that 8 months. Now there was over 40,000 dead Turkish soldiers. So to comprehend that, you know, we were the aggressors in that situation. They were defending their own land just because they had to.
Sure.
It's Churchill's idea to put us in that spot. But, you know, they lost triple what we had. That's crazy. But that doesn't get talked about. And then, like, the biggest thing as well I find with all of that is we talk about that and how it's a national, it's almost like a culture for Australia now as Anzac Day is that. And that's rightly so because of what happened and what we did. But if I asked you right now, like, what's your thoughts on the charge of Bathsheba? Do you know what I'm talking about? No, see? So we lost. The only reason that's famous is because we lost so badly, but it was more the resilience we had. But then later in the war, when we were still fighting the Turks, there's the charge of Bathsheba where we actually used the light horse on horses, right? Actually used them to what they were supposed to be doing. And there's that movie about it. I don't know if you've seen it, where they charge down the guns, the Turkish guns, and because the guns couldn't wind down fast enough because the blokes were just on horses. And we overtook that city, and that was the Battle of Bathsheba. But we don't talk about that stuff because we actually won, whereas we talk about the negatives. But the whole thing in general is a cool thing, and I loved being a part of it. So
I think the saddest part about that World War One was what was the Australian horse called that they took over there?
Simpson and his donkey, you mean?
No,
or
but
the breed,
the breed of horse. I think it started with a W.
Yeah, they were the wild horses, so they weren't broke in yet, as they call it.
So they weren't scared of the they weren't scared of the bangs.
Yeah.
So they did have a name, but the poor
I forget the name as well.
The poor bastards had to go and euthanize their horses.
No, that's not true.
Is that not true?
I knew you were going to say that. I was waiting for you to say that. That's actually not true. So they were sold off in Egypt.
Because they said they
the UK.
would not sell them off so that they were used for meat.
Another narrative, yeah. So it was like that whole British narrative, which, you know, in some cases was true. But no, the horses weren't. Majority were. So none of them did come home. That's true. Well, some might have managed to get home.
Because I think there was a cost factor to get them home.
Correct, yeah. It's a long, remember that's a 3-4 month trip on a boat.
But the fuckers were the helicopters for you in Vietnam to get you.
Yeah, no, they were sold off. So a lot of them would have stayed in Egypt, the UK. So, yeah, I was like you. I believed that exactly. And I went over there. And luckily with all these tours I go on, there's great tour guides. And that's a false narrative, that one. So they were sold off. So, which is good to know that they didn't get shot in the fucking head.
Well, yeah, that might have been the Hollywood side has come into that then.
Correct, yeah.
Which is a shame, really, because I thought it was gospel.
That's what happens when you let Americans direct Australian movies, mate. That's what happens.
And we got a guest coming in shortly.
We do, yeah. Good mate of mine, someone I've travelled with a fair bit, so he's coming around.
All right.
Talk about the States, I reckon. So.
I reckon so.